Welcome. Have you ever wondered why you reach for that second piece of cake even when you're already full? Or why you buy a lottery ticket when the odds of winning are astronomically low? Welcome to the paradox of irrational decisions, a fascinating quirk of human behavior we all share. It's that baffling moment when we act against our own best interests, even when we're fully aware of the logical choice. Think about it. We've all been there, haven't we? The alarm rings, and despite knowing that getting up early is good for us, we hit the snooze button. Or when we indulge in a shopping spree, fully aware that saving would be a wiser choice. It's not just you or me, it's all of us. It's universal, it's human, it's irrational. Now, isn't it intriguing to think about why we do what we do? Let's delve into the fascinating world of irrational decisions. Believe it or not, there's a whole field of study dedicated to understanding our irrational decisions. This intriguing domain is known as behavioral economics. Think of it as the love child of psychology and economics, born out of a keen interest to decode the quirks of human decision-making. One of the key concepts in this field is cognitive biases. These are essentially mental shortcuts or patterns of thought that can lead us astray. For example, there's the confirmation bias, where we tend to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore anything that challenges it. Ever found yourself only reading news articles that align with your views? That's confirmation bias in action. Then there are heuristics. These are like cognitive rule-of-thumb strategies that simplify decision-making. They're great time savers, but they can also lead us to make irrational choices. Take the availability heuristic, for instance. It makes us believe that events that easily come to mind are more likely to happen. So, if you've just watched a movie about a plane crash, you might suddenly feel that flying is incredibly dangerous, even though statistically it's one of the safest ways to travel. Last but not least, we have the prospect theory. This theory suggests that people make decisions based on the potential value of losses and gains rather than the final outcome. For example, most of us would prefer to avoid losing $100 than to gain $100, even though logically the net result is the same. These theories, cognitive biases, heuristics, and prospect theory, are just a few of the tools our brains use to make sense of the world. They can lead us to make irrational decisions, but they also provide fascinating insights into the workings of our complex minds. These theories provide a glimpse into our complex brains, but how do they play out in real life? From impulse buying to sticking with a bad decision, our irrationality shows up in countless ways. Take, for instance, the sunk cost fallacy. This psychological trap convinces us to throw good money after bad. We've all been there. You've bought a ticket to a movie, but halfway through you realize it's a real dud. Yet you stick it out till the end, simply because you've already paid. Instead of cutting your losses and doing something more enjoyable, you end up wasting time and money. That's the sunk cost fallacy in action. Then there's the infamous confirmation bias. Imagine you're convinced that people who wear glasses are smarter. You're likely to remember every time a bespectacled individual dazzles you with their intellect while conveniently forgetting all the times they didn't. This bias distorts our perception of reality, leading us to make irrational decisions based on skewed data. And who could forget loss aversion? This principle suggests we feel the sting of loss twice as intensely as the pleasure of gain. Picture this. You find $20 on the street. Great, right? But then you lose it. Suddenly the joy of finding the money is overshadowed by the misery of losing it, even though you're basically back to where you started. That's loss aversion for you. Each of these examples highlights our tendency to act against our own best interests. We're all guilty of it. We've all spent money on things we don't need, stuck with decisions we regret, and let our fears dictate our actions. And while it's easy to dismiss these as mere quirks of human nature, they can have serious implications for our lives. So why do we make these irrational decisions? And more importantly, how can we stop? To answer these questions, we must delve deeper into the human mind. We must understand the psychological mechanisms that drive our behavior, the cognitive biases that skew our perception of reality, and the emotional factors that cloud our judgment. Clearly, our irrational decisions are more common than we think. But what do the experts say about this? Psychologists, economists, and neuroscientists have all weighed in on our irrational decisions. Now let's delve into the intriguing world of expert opinions. What do the big brains of the world say about our propensity for irrationality? Well, they've got quite a few fascinating insights up their sleeves. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel laureate in economics, and his late colleague Amos Tversky are pioneers in the field of behavioral economics. They've argued that our irrationality is not just random, but systematically predictable. Their research shows we have two systems of thinking. System 1, the gut reaction, fast and intuitive, and System 2, slow and deliberate. Often, System 1 takes the wheel, leading us down the path of irrationality. Then there's Dan Ariely, a professor of psychology and behavioral economics. He suggests that our irrational behaviors are not a bug, but a feature. According to Ariely, these behaviors are not just random acts of madness. They are consistent patterns that can be understood, predicted, and even harnessed for good. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, on the other hand, argues that emotions play a crucial role in decision-making. His somatic marker hypothesis suggests that emotional responses guide us in making complex decisions, even when we're not consciously aware of them. So it's not always about logic and reason. Our emotions get a say too. And then there's Richard Thaler, another Nobel laureate in economics who believes that we're predictably irrational because of our mental shortcuts or heuristics. He suggests that these shortcuts, while useful in some situations, often lead us to make irrational decisions. These expert insights might seem complex, but they all point to one thing. Our irrational decisions are not just random acts of chaos. They're deeply ingrained in our psychology, influenced by our emotions, and often predictably patterned. Understanding these patterns, these quirks of the human mind, can help us make sense of our irrationality and potentially change our behaviors. So now that we understand why we make irrational decisions, what can we do about it? While it's impossible to completely eliminate our irrational behaviors, we can certainly learn to manage them. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this segment. Let's begin with mindfulness. Now, this isn't about reaching a state of Zen or chanting mantras. Mindfulness in its simplest form is about being present and aware. It's about noticing when our thoughts and emotions are spiraling out of control and gently bringing them back to reality. It's like being the conductor of your own mental orchestra, ensuring that no single instrument drowns out the rest. With practice, mindfulness can help us respond to situations with clarity and poise rather than reacting impulsively. Next up is cognitive restructuring. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? But it's really just a way of challenging and changing unhelpful thought patterns. It involves identifying irrational beliefs, examining the evidence for and against them, and then replacing them with more balanced and rational thoughts. It's like being a detective in your own mind, questioning your assumptions and biases. Cognitive restructuring is a key component of cognitive behavioral therapy. And there are numerous self-help books and online resources available if you're interested in learning more. Finally, let's talk about decision-making frameworks. These are structured approaches to making decisions designed to help us consider all relevant factors and potential consequences. They range from simple pros and cons lists to more complex models like the 6 hats thinking method or the decision matrix. By providing a systematic way to evaluate options, these frameworks can help us avoid common cognitive biases and make more rational decisions. So there you have it. Mindfulness, cognitive restructuring, and decision-making frameworks. 3 practical strategies to help you manage your irrationality. Of course, these aren't quick fixes. They require practice and patience. But with time, they can make a real difference. Remember, understanding our irrational decisions is the first step towards making better choices. And with these tools at your disposal, you're well on your way to doing just that. So why not give them a try? You might just surprise yourself. Now that you know why we make irrational decisions, I bet you're reflecting on your own behaviors. Isn't it fascinating to realize that even when we think we're acting rationally, there's often a hidden current of irrationality beneath the surface? It's like we're all playing a complex game of chess against our own brains. And sometimes the brain makes a move we just didn't see coming. But here's the beauty of it. Now that we have a better understanding of the psychology behind our irrational decisions, we can start to navigate this cognitive chessboard with a little more strategy. We can begin to predict those unexpected moves and perhaps even turn the game in our favor. And here's where you come in. We're all in this together, right? We're all trying to make sense of our own irrationality. And what better way to do that than by sharing our experiences? Let's start a conversation, a global brainstorming session, if you will. In the comments section below, share your own experiences with irrational decisions. Was there a time when you acted against your own best interests? What was the situation? How did you feel afterwards? What insights did you gain? Remember, there's no judgment here. We're all human, and we all have our moments of irrationality. By sharing our stories, we can learn from each other and gradually build a more comprehensive understanding of our own irrationality. It's like crowdsourcing wisdom. And who knows, your story might just be the key that helps someone else unlock their own irrational patterns. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Our journey into the fascinating world of human psychology is far from over, and we would love for you to join us as we continue to explore this captivating subject. So, the next time you find yourself reaching for that second slice of cake or buying a lottery ticket, remember, you're not alone in your irrationality. We're all in this together.